about what are the roles in a breathwork session. First of all, very plain and simple, if you are inviting someone in to do a breathwork session, it's your role to help prepare the space for that session. First of all, you prepare the client for this process and how you make agreements and how you explain to them what it is. Even physically, if you're doing this in person, you have a private space where someone can lay down comfortably on a mat or on cushions. Do you have a blanket for them? Or if you're doing it virtually, you make sure that they have these things so that they can do the session with you comfortably. In fact, we have a whole document that we send to people before we do a class or even an individual session, which prepares them, if we're working online, if we're working virtually, how to set up the situation physically, but also how to set it up so that they have backups if needed when we're doing a virtual session. You set up the situation also with your mental and emotional presence as one of acceptance and non-judgment. One of the things in particular that we'll go into more in detail at another part of the training is what happens when people have difficulty with the breathing or they have resistance to breathing. It's important that we recognize this resistance as an opportunity for us to work with their fears rather than we get into judgment. We are responsible as practitioners to stay aware of our own breath and aware of the issues that come up for us when working with a client. What's going on for me? What's my comfort level here? I must take responsibility for that rather than project it all on the client. One of the ways that I've described breath work is intuition training, because much of how you interact and how you give suggestions to your client won't be strictly intellectual or come from a manual. It'll come from an inner sense, your connection with spirit and your intuition. In the first place, we are a breath coach. And we know that that means more than just mechanically breathing, but because we know that how a person breathes tells us about how they are physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. So we're not there just to be a life coach or a psychotherapist. We're there to help them with their breath, how to breathe in a full and a free way. And it's important that we don't forget that and just go into something that we're used to doing with people and ignore the fact that their breath is telling us where their fears are, what they are really wanting in terms of opening up to their life energy. We always come back to being in tune with how breath is flowing through them and how it is creating the environment around them and their relationships. As I said, the breath is what informs our body, and our bodies are our tool. And so the bodies of our clients will give us clues as to what's going on in their emotions and in their thoughts. We'll look at this much more carefully and thoroughly in other trainings when we look at body themes. But very simply, a person who is breathing and starts to get into difficulty, their feet might start going back, up and down, back and forth. And the body's saying, I want to run away. This is scary. I want to get out of here. Okay, it's not a judgment. It's just saying, okay, we recognize that there may be fear going on here. So we breathe into that fear and we find out what we can do to help create more safety for them to be in their body rather than run away from it. Of all of the years that I've done breath work since the 1970s, the question that I ask the most of clients in breathwork sessions is, what are you feeling in your body? The point of this is that they become aware of what their body is telling them. You might look at their body and say, oh, you're very tense. You need to relax. But that's your judgment. What's more important is that they recognize, for example, they may be breathing and thinking about the relationship with a parent, and their body is starting to stiffen. It's important that they get in touch with what's going on more than you tell them what you think is going on. So we will also be learning a lot of ways to explore with our clients, ways they can move their body, ways they can express with their body. But I always ask before I make any suggestion, are you willing to experiment with this? Because it is an experiment. It's not a manipulation to get them to release their anger, for example. So if they are clear that the movement that I am asking them to do is an experiment rather than a test that they either pass or fail, I'll have much more success in that being a useful intervention. So along the way, we're going to learn a lot of different tools, body movement, but also guided imagery, inner child dialogue, bioenergetic exercises. They're all wonderful things to use with breath work, but always the most important of all is just the breath itself. We've talked about the role of the breath worker. Now, the role of the client is to have a positive intention towards their healing and growth. I will not do a session or work with a person unless I find out from them what it is that they want, and I agree that I can help them do that. We're teaching them to be aware of their breath and their body, and their role is to continue to be aware and also to give us feedback on that.